Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your educator. I warmly welcome you all on our YouTube platform where we in today's video are going to get introduced to a new course that we are launching from the 1st of January 2024. So this course basically is going to be related to your UGC NET paper 2, specifically English literature, right? English literature. Now, before directly jumping onto that, I would try to give you an explanation about what is the NET examination, right? So it is an examination which is held for the post of an assistant professor, or if you want to pursue your further studies in your PhD time, right? So there are two papers. The UGC NET exam comprises of two papers, where we have paper 1, which is named as Teaching and Research Aptitude, having 50 questions of 2 marks each, and paper 2 is any paper that you have done your masters in. So in this case, if you have done your masters in English literature with 55% of marks without rounding them off, right, for general category, and for other categories is like 50% minimum, right? So paper 2 here would be your subject specific. Here we are talking about English literature majorly, right? So there we see that 100 questions of 2 marks each are there, 150 questions of 2 marks each with no negative marking, correct? So your entire paper will be of 300 marks, correct? So this is the syllabus. If you go to the NTA website, you will be redirected to a page to download a PDF for the same. Now here we see that we do not have a clear-cut syllabus, as in what things we are supposed to do, what we are supposed to leave, so on and so forth. So at times students tend to get confused. So what we have tried to do is, we have tried to break it into different chunks, right, age-wise, slowly and gradually. But let's take a look at the syllabus here. So the syllabus is Unit 1 Drama, Poetry, Unit 3 Fiction and Short Story, from where we see multiple times questions are asked. Non-fictional prose is your unit number 4, right? So they can ask questions related to the same. Then we move to different, and they have just given us drama, but they have not told us from which age. So of course we are supposed to cover each and every age, the drama, the poetry, the fiction, short story, non-fiction of each and every age gradually. Moving forward, then we get to unit number 5, that is language with its basic concepts, theories and pedagogy, basically ELT, as in like how would you teach English to a student whose first language is not English, right? So what are the different approaches which are there to teach English? All of them come under ELT, also including the linguistic part. Then we have unit number 6, which says English in India, that how English as a language from the colonial times, with the emergence of the language and with the advent of the Europeans in the Indian sphere, how the language was, how we saw the evolution basically of the English language, how it was made a part of the syllabus, so the curriculum in the English spheres in different universities, schools, primary, secondary, schools and all, right? Then we have unit 7 that deals with cultural studies. This unit is somewhere or the other linked with unit number 9 of yours, that is literary theory post World War II, where we will be having multiple theories to discuss, correct? I will be telling about all those things in the upcoming slides. Then we have literary criticism and unit number 10, research methods and material in English, which majorly is covered and is done in the English sphere using the English terminologies, how you are going to do your research in English literature and all, correct? So this unit would be so much easier if you have covered your research aptitude for paper 1 properly. But of course, you are supposed to take into consideration that you now, as for the unit number 10 of English literature, you now will have to think of research from an English literature student's perspective, that what type of research would you conduct? Would it be a qualitative or a quantitative one, right? So all those things. So now this batch is going to be live on the Drishti Learning application from the 1st of January 2024, where you will see that every day live classes will be provided to you. Any doubts that that you see, that you come across during the class, they would be answered. And even if they are not answered, we have doubt clearing sessions at regular intervals for you all. Maybe you are reading a piece of novel, you're reading a piece of work somewhere or the other, but you get confused between certain terminologies and all. So in those doubt clearing sessions, all your doubts would be sorted, all your doubts would be answered, and it would be an interactive session to deal with, right? Then tips and tricks to solve the questions. Now in English literature, majorly we see that many questions related to chronology are asked. So when I was preparing and I cleared my NET examination, I tried many ways to memorize the chronology. So I will try to give it to you all, right? We can memorize things. We can memorize the chronology through one way or the other, right? Repeated questions or PYQs would also be taken care of so that you guys do not miss up on the pattern that is there, right? And important topics, if there are any topics which you can read on your own, which can be left, and if there are any topics which are more important than the other ones, according to the importance, they will be segregated and you will be told to put much and more focus and emphasis on the most important ones, not leaving the least important ones behind, of course, because you never know what is going to be asked in the examination. But yes, of course, we are going to put much and more focus on the important topics, also considering the least important topics going hand in hand, right? So what would I be dealing in the classes in the syllabus of yours? So in my classes, I am going to bring to you all the history of the Chaucerian age. That is known as the age of Chaucer. Like, why? What did Chaucer do that the entire age was named after him? We have other writers as well, how he developed heroic couplet, right? Rhyme royalty scheme, how all those things were developed. And all things like the Book of the Duchess, the Legend of Good Women, the Parliament of Fowls, Troilus and Cresside, the Canterbury Tales, which is of course the most important one, right? So we are going to deal with the prologue, the general prologue of the Canterbury Tales. We are going to deal with the introduction and the description of the different characters which are there, because at times the language of the Chaucerian age, somewhere or the other, is different from the English language that we use today. So we need to be aware about, if Chaucer is describing a character, how am I going to know? So entire emphasis is going to be provided on the same thing. Then moving on to other contemporaries of Chaucer, like William Langland with works like The Visions of Pius the Plowman, John Wycliffe, who is associated with the translation of the Bible and making it available to the people, common masses, because Bible was considered not to be read by the common masses, but this was a move that he took. John Mandeville, The Travels of Sir John Mandeville, non-fictional kind of prose. John Gower with Vox Clementis, Confessio Mantis. Thomas Occleve with The Regiment of Princes. John Lydgate with The Troy Book and The Fall of Princes. So all these things, talking about Chaucer, the different stages and phases of his works, also keeping in touch with the contemporaries of the same age, right? So that we are not left with anything. Then comes the age of revival, where we see majorly not much literature was produced, but still there are some important works from that particular age as well. Like we see Erasmus's The Praise of Folly, who is going to come in the costume of a fool, right? Why is that? We are going to deal with all those things. William Dunbar, Layman for the Makers. Richard Tottle with Tottle's Miscellany. Thomas Eliot, Thomas Malory with Le Morte d'Arthur. King Arthur and the Round Table Conference that he used to take and all, right? Thomas More with his work Utopia, an Ideal State, and how in today's time utopia, a concept that More gave, became a term for an ideal state, right? William Tyndale with Tyndale's Bible, because During the age of Chaucer, at the end, somewhere or the other, translations from Wycliffe have taken a place already. Now the other people will also come to the front to make their versions of the Bible. So of course, at times chronology related questions are asked from the Bible, and at times they also ask like this particular Bible was named after which king or maybe published in which year. All these things we will be talking about. Which was the first English Bible to be printed completely, right, with Old and New Testaments together. Then we have the age of Milton, where we see he wrote his magnum opus work known as Paradise Lost, where he tries to talk about the fall of man. How and from where Eve was made. She was made out of Adam's ribs. And the way the class I have, tried to plan the class for you all is going to be really, really very interactive as well as interesting. Because you are going to know why after 6 days, 7th day is known as a Sunday. All those important things which we do not really think of in our daily lives. Paradise Regained, La Allegro and Il Penseroso, which are companion poems. Why are they? Samson Agonistes and Lycidas. All these works of Milton we are going to deal with. Then we have other contemporaries of Milton like John Bunyan, The Pilgrim's Progress, at times questions are asked. Robert Burton, The Anatomy of Melancholy, and how different types of melancholy he tries to describe in his work. So questions have been seen where they ask like what type of melancholy is the odd one out which he does not talk about, or which one are the ones that he talks about. So we'll pay greater emphasis and focus to those things. Thomas Brown's Hydrotapha, Urn Burial, or Religio Medici, the religion of a doctor, urn burial, where he found the burial of the different urns in Norfolk and all. Correct? Jeremy Taylor with Holy Living and Holy Dying, Richard Baxter, Isaac Walton, The Complete Angler, and Thomas Fuller with Androcynus, or the unfortunate politician. Correct? Moving on to the age of Pope, which is also considered the neoclassical age after Dryden. So in the neoclassical age, we have 3 different ages divided. We have the age of Dryden, we have the age of Pope, and we have the age of Samuel Johnson, who wrote the English dictionary. The age of Pope, why is it important? Because multiple times we see the questions coming from different sorts of periodicals which were being published during these times. So how did I memorize the things? I'll be sharing the tips and tricks with you all for the same. Alexander Pope with his magnum opus, The Rape of the Lock, Essay on Man, Essay on Criticism. Jonathan Swift with his Gulliver's Travels and other periodicals as well. Richard Steele, Joseph Edison, both of them are associated with periodical writing. Samuel Johnson with the Dictionary of the English Language. There's a very interesting story about how he was trying to look for someone, a patron, when he was trying to write the dictionary. But what happened is what we are going to talk about in the classroom. So stay tuned, right? Then we have Daniel Defoe, Robinson Crusoe, Henry Fielding, Tobias Smollett, Lawrence Sterne, Tristram Shandy. How even in the age of Pope, we start to see the postmodern digressions that the postmodernists talk about, right? Charlotte Lennox and Thomas Gray, Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. All these things, small or large, would be taken care of, right? Then we have, so you see in the age of Pope, we have multiple writers. Oliver Goldsmith, She Stoops to Conquer, William Cooper, Robert Burns, right? William Blake and James Thompson. William Blake with The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, whereas we have James Thompson's work, Seasons, right? All these things. Then we have the Romantic Age, where I have segregated it based on the different genres. Here, the poets that we are going to deal with is William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. Both of them are associated with the publication of lyrical ballads, right? Now, there were different versions of lyrical ballads that were revised. All those things will be taken care of. And of course, Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Wordsworth, both of them gotten the work published. Correct? But how many poems are there in lyrical ballads which are written by S.T. Coleridge, and how many of them are by Wordsworth? And which one is the starting poem? Which one is the ending poem? Because these are the questions that we have seen in the NET examination. Robert Southey, right? Lord Byron, P.B. Shelley, Keats, John Clare, all of them are important, right? Robert Southey, Lord Byron, all of them are important, correct? Because these are the ones, and Byron is associated with creating a character who is not so good, yet the audience tries to sympathize with the character. A bad character, but a good one in the sense that he is so much bad that we try to talk about, yes, what is the hero that he names? He calls his hero Byronic hero, right? So all these things, Coleridge's, Kubla Khan, ये सारी चीजें हम करेंगे deal. Then the novelists that are there, Walter Scott, associated with the Waverley novels, right? Like Ivanhoe, right? All these things. Then we have Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, right? Anne Radcliffe, Horace Walpole, all these, the Castle of Otranto, Anne Radcliffe, the Mysteries of Udolpho, right? Anne Radcliffe, the Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole, Fanny Burney, Evelina, Camilla and all, William Godwin and Richard Sheridan. All these writers are very important when you are looking at different ages, and we are going to do them in such a chronology only because the history of these different ages are also going to be dealt with. So we need to know why the things in the age of Pope are happening the way they are, because there were certain changes that we have seen in the age of Dryden. Correct? So all these things are interlinked, and we'll have to talk about the history, not just the writers, but the history, and then move forward, because there will be many more important historical events. Then we have prose में William Hazlitt, Leigh Hunt, Charles Lamb and Thomas De Quincey. Essays of William Hazlitt, right? Then we see Elia and the essays of Elia, the last essays of Elia by Charles Lamb. All these were the ones who are the ones associated with the prose or the essay writing majorly, right? The English, Confessions of an English Opium Eater, Knocking at the Gate of Macbeth, right? On the Knocking at the Gate of Macbeth. ये सारे works जो हैं, they are really very important, because non-fictional prose also now is being asked in the examination. So we cannot leave them. The School for Scandal by Richard Sheridan. Moving forward, we have modern age. How now from the Romantic, and then after Romantic comes the Victorian age, where women were not given that much importance. Then we see a new age penetrating into the society in such a manner that we see the industrialization happening. In William Blake's works, we already would have seen the songs of innocence and experience that he has tried to segregate them. But in the modern age, we see some modernist tendencies in the works, right? Because world wars are also going to happen and all. So the important writers and novelists, Conrad, Heart of Darkness, Youth, right? Nostromo and all. George Orwell, Animal Farm. James Joyce's short stories, Dubliners, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Virginia Woolf, To the Lighthouse, right? Jacob's Room. Even the non-fictional work, A Room of One's Own. Am I a Snob? Am I a Snob? तो recent ऐसे था जो question पे पूछा गया था. D.H. Lawrence, his works, Chronology, Sons and Lovers, Kangaroo, all these. This Lady Chatterley's Lover, beautiful work, which was banned. Aldous Huxley, right? Graham Greene, E.M. Foster's The Passage to India, H.G. Wells, Invisible Man, Rudyard Kipling, Kim majorly, right? So we see all these works coming up to with some different sort of tendencies for the writers, for the people, for the audience to also grab the opportunity to read them and try to understand how these works are different from the ones that have already been there. Correct? So the modern age novels. So we have Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Then Orwell's 1984, Animal Farm, James Joyce's Ulysses, and how it is different from the Ulysses of Alfred Lord Tennyson. Then To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. We will have to take care of reading the summary so deeply this time as well, because now complex questions are asked from the summaries as well. Sons and Lovers, Lady Chatterley's Lover, Animal Farm by George Orwell, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which tries to talk about how the technology can have a very bad impact in the upcoming times, and we will be all in all associated, surrounded by the technology, that we will not be able to find the emotional connect that should be there, right? All these things. Then we have The Quiet American by Graham Greene, Passage to India, and they have asked questions related to these things as well, because he was a spy. Graham Greene एक spy भी थे, so what are the works which show the spy nature as well? E.M. Foster's Morris, which tries to talk about the theme of homosexuality and all. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Correct? Moving forward to my favorite, one of my favorites to teach here is Indian aesthetics. So we have seen a pattern now occurring that we see certain changes, that questions from British literature are asked, of course, but they have also now started paying attention much and more to Indian aesthetics as well. So we have different schools there by different thinkers who have been there. So we are going to deal with the Rasa school associated with Bharat Muni, Alankar school, Bama, Gunadosh school, Dandin, Riti, Vaman, Dhwani school, Anandavardhan, Vakrokti by Kuntak, Auchitya by Kshemendra, and Anuman by Mahim Bhatt. Not only that, I am also going to deal with the writings which are majorly Dalit literature writings. Right? We are also going to talk about Dalit literature and aesthetics, because we see questions popping up from there as well. Autobiographies ho gayi, right? All these things, the poetry which is there. So we are going to talk about that as well. Coming to Indian drama, from summaries, the questions are asked majorly in Indian dramas. So we see classical dramatists, we are going to move and start from the ancient times of Bhas, Kalidas, Bhavabhuti, and then we are going to start moving gradually towards the modern pre or post-independence dramatists, majorly like Mahesh Dattani, Girish Karnar, Badal Sirkar, who is associated with the concept of third theatre, Gurcharan Das, Larin Sahib, Mohan Rakesh, Ade Adhure, Vijay Tendulkar, Cyrus Mistry, Asif Karim Boy, Habib Tanvi. These सारे writers we are going to cover in our works, and going to cover in such a manner that I will try to give you homework each and every day. So you will have to have an approach for the same, right? Then we have ELT, that is different English learning and teaching methods, that I already told you, English language teaching methods, where we are going to move from the ancient Latin and Greek method, that is grammar translation method, direct method, situational and structural approach, audiolingual method, communicative language teaching, total physical response, suggestopedia or desuggestopedia, all these things. So I will try to give you simple examples so that we can understand these concepts, these theories and approaches in such a manner that we will be able to recall them in our examination, right? Then we have literary criticism, Greek, Sappho, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Sophocles and Aeschylus, that we are going to deal with, right? Because they are the ones who are associated from the very ancient times with the school of literary criticism. That how Plato was trying to talk about that people, he wanted poets to be banned in the Republic. But why was the case? Was he literally against the poets, or was there some other reason? Okay? Then moving forward to the Middle Ages, Philip Sidney, Stephen Gosson, who wrote the work, The School of Abuse, which Sidney replies in his work, which came to be known as an apology for poetry or a defense of poesy. Why did he reply? What was something that upset Sidney, to which he had to reply then to Gosson? Correct? All these things. Then literary criticism, the other thinkers like Giambattista Vico, Edmund Burke, Gibbon, Hobbes, Locke. Locke majorly associated with the idea of tabula rasa, that mind is a blank slate. We are not born with anything written on our mind, but rather we create things with our own sensory experiences that we have. So we are going to talk about the thinkers as well, which would be non-fictional somewhere or the other. Then Victorian age criticism of George Eliot, how she views novels, Friedrich Nietzsche, the nihilism in his works, that he say God is dead and all. G.M. Hopkins was given us different types of schemes. Henry James, who has tried to talk about the theory of novel. Matthew Arnold, right? Matthew Arnold, T.S. Eliot. Both of them are really important, and a question, because the names of the works at times are somewhere or the other similar. So they ask questions related to match the following of the same name works and all. So we are going to deal with them. Then literary theory, post-structuralism. Roland Barthes, who is a post-structuralist as well as was a structuralist. So how from structuralism he became a post-structuralist. Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Gilles Deleuze and Baudrillard. These we are going to talk about, right? Then the theory of deconstructing a text with Paul Demar, Derrida, Hartman, J. Hillis Miller. What is deconstruction? Is it related to destruction of a text or something like that, right? Then moving forward, we have the theory of psychoanalysis, talking about psychology in our works. How psychoanalysis, how we can view the mind of any character in a novel, any short story and all. So we had Freud with his interpretation of dreams, Jacques Lacan, who gives us the mirror image, the concept of the mirror image. Carl Jung, associated with the concept of the collective unconscious, that even if we are separated by cultures, we are still collectively, our unconscious is collectively linked together. Harold Bloom with the work, the term, the anxiety of influence. And then Alfred Adler, who is associated with the concept known as inferiority complex. Correct? Then we have archetypal criticism, which is also known as myth criticism. J.G. Fraser, Carl Jung, Northrop Frye, Maud Botkin, these are the theorists that we are going to cover. And then feminism, with starting from Wollstonecraft, Fuller, Mill, Virginia Woolf with her essay A Room of One's Own, with Beauvoir, Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, Kate Millett, right, Sexual Politics, Judith Butler with her works, right, with the concept of gender performativity. Elaine Showalter with different phases of feminine, feminist, female phases. Helene Sixu, who is associated with a creature feminine. And Shulamit Firestone, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. These are the recent names that we have seen in the examination popping up, right? So all these women, and then Marxism related to the capitalistic thinking of ideology, hegemony, all these terms we are going to take a look at, and then going to see who are the major writers, what are their important terms, the works that are associated. So who are the ones associated with this theory or school? Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, Das Kapital, right? Louis Althusser, Antonio Gramsci, Pierre Bourdieu, Paul Ricoeur, Ernest Mendel. These are the ones who are associated with Marxism majorly. Then we have new historicism. How should we view history through the lens of a new historicist, and how is it different from an old historicist's point of view? With Foucault, with his terms such as episteme, knowledge, all these things like discourse, power. Stephen Greenblatt, who is the pioneer, the father of new criticism, and Louis Montrose, who talks about the historicity of text and the textuality of history. What does that term mean? We are going to go in greater detail to talk about these things. Then we have post-colonial criticism with thinkers like Fanon, Black Skin, White Mask, Edward Said, Orientalism, Homi K. Bhabha with his theory of hybridity and all. Gayatri Spivak with the theory of subaltern and the work named Can the Subaltern Speak? She has also translated the works of Mahashweta Devi and also translated the work of grammatology of Derrida. These questions are asked. Emmy Césaire and Leopold, Edward Soya, Benedict Anderson, Antonio Negri, Michael Hart, Salman Rushdie and Bill Ashcroft, who is associated with post-colonial criticism with his works or anthology as well. Correct? Then European literature, with the world literature coming up here. European literature is also something which they ask questions from. So we are going to talk about Rousseau, Miguel de Cervantes, August Strindberg and Henrik Ibsen. His work, Ghosts, is important. Then German literature, Johann Wolfgang van Goethe, Brecht, The Good Woman of Saizman, Thomas Mann, right? Franz Kafka with his works like Letters to Milena, Metamorphosis, right? Hermann Hesse, Gunter Grass with the Tin Drum, works like Tin Drum and all. Summaries here are going to be much more important. Russian mein, we have writers, we will do a brief history of course, then move to writers like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy with Anna Karenina, Alexander Pushkin, Chekhov, and who is the Indian or Commonwealth writer who mixed the names of Chekhov, because Chekhov was also a favorite of his, and of course from the we know Heart of Darkness is writer Conrad. Boris Pasternak, Ivan Turgenev, Bulgakov and Vladimir Nabokov. These are the writers associated with the Russian literature. Then we have Roman literature with writers like Cicero, Virgil, Ovid, Seneca, Quintilian, Horace. Horace's Ars Poetica, right? What are the terms that he gives? Poeta, poesis and all. Aurelius and Juvenal. Juvenal associated with the satire as well. Horace is also associated with some types of satire. Then in the Caribbean, we have Derek Walcott, George Lemming, Jamaica Kincaid, Edward Braithwaite and Naipaul. Naipaul's work multiple times in diaspora as well have been asked, and they have been asked in such a manner that we see they ask questions related to the subtitles of the works and all. Correct? So Naipaul. Then Colombian, Caribbean and Colombian, we are going to deal together, almost together, because both of these things were colonized. Gabriel Garcia Marquez with 100 Years of Solitude work, which is really important, uses the technique of magic realism. Kidendrio Obiso, Rafael Pombo, Jose Eustacio Rivera and Jorge Isaacs. These are the names of the writers which are important from the Colombian sphere. Then I am going to deal with the Canadian sphere, where much and more important would be given to writers like Michael Ondaatje, Margaret Atwood with her works like Handmaid's Tale, The Testaments, Elias Grace, Jan Martel, Life of Pi, Alice Munro, Lawrence Hill, Rohinton Mistry, who is also going to be covered in the diasporic writers specifically, right? Margaret Lawrence, Gabriel Roy and Sham Selvadurai. Sham Selvadurai is also going to be covered in diaspora as well as in the Canadian literature. Correct? So these are the important writers. Then in African, we have Adichie, Achebe, Nadine Gordimer, J.M. Coetzee, Soyinka, Buki M. Keta, Bessie Head, Gugiwa Thiongo. Multiple times questions have been asked related to the essays as well. Ben Okri, Nuruddin Farah. All these writers, majorly the names of the works, and some works where I would tell you guys to read the summaries of, only read the summaries of those works, right? Moving forward to American literature, Washington Irving, William Cullen Bryant, Nathaniel Hawthorne with his work like The Minister's Black Wheel, The Scarlet Letter, all these things like Rappaccini's Daughter, short story. Edgar Allan Poe, who is associated with his term and style of writing, which is known as grotesque and macabre. Something which are very, very strange. So he is a pioneer of detective as well as gothic fiction, so to say. So his works like The Raven, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Telltale Heart, Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Oliver Wendell Holmes' Old Ironsides, Amos Alcott's The Forester and Thoreau, and then Emerson's. Emerson's works are important from the non-fictional point of view, like Nature, Self-Reliance, Concord Hymn. All these works. Then we have Thoreau's Walden and Civil Disobedience. Civil Disobedience was a work which influenced the thought process of Mahatma Gandhi as well, correct? And Tolstoy. Emily Dickinson, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. She was one such person who now turned to be confessional poet, right? I heard a fly buzz when I died. All these poems and all. Walt Whitman with his major collection of poetry, Leaves of Grass, which includes the work Song of Myself as well. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, which tries to talk about slavery in its crux, in its center. Then we have, of course, the course highlights that I try to incorporate in my way of teaching would include intertextuality, that I would try to give you some names, some works which have interlinked names and all, some comments, anything which is related to criticism of any particular writer, same place with same names and all, pen names of the writers, acronyms or mnemonics, so that we know the words, the works as well in a chronological manner. We'll try to practice those things as well. Prizes like Booker, Nobel Prizes, other prizes like Pulitzer and all, we are going to take a look at. Sahitya Akademi also for that matter. Other movements associated like Cubism, Imagism, Symbolism, what are they? How are they different from one another? Other terms that are related, literary terms like onomatopoeia, metaphor, simile, how climax, anticlimax, what are these things? We are also going to talk about them. And yes, of course, quotes. Why have I put it in capital letters? Because they ask questions related to quotes as well, the opening and the closing lines, so on and so forth. So I hope now you've gotten the idea as in how the course is going to be, provided to you all. It's going again. I'm going to revise this thing again so that you all know from the very 1st January 2024, we are going to launch the course of English literature for UGC NET students specifically, correct? And of course, this course is going to help you in other teaching exams as well. So I hope to see you guys there enrolled in my course, and we'll study together and clear this NET JRF examination. Till the time, you guys stay tuned. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.